2019. Welcome back to the Voodoo Garden. It's a brand spanking new year, and I have some brand spanking new ideas for the Voodoo Garden. As you can see from my mess here, you're probably starting to piece it together what Ray's going to do. If not, I'm going to explain it to you in pure Ray fashion, kind of a little bit off-center and more than likely not going to appeal to the purist at heart when it comes to this. But then again, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. This is my first ever attempt into hydroponics. Hydroponics is, in a nutshell, for me, is basically growing your plants in a soilless environment. Now, you know me. I am a soil gardener through and through. I grow plants in dirt. I grow them in dirt here. I grow them in dirt outside. I've always gone that way because I prefer to get my hands dirty. I like working with soil. I like speaking with it, listening to it. I have a connection with it. We're very happy together. Yet, recently, I think it was about a month, 2 months ago, I was sitting in my chair at my desk and it just came upon me. Why not give it a small shot my way of doing hydroponics? Instead of going with what everybody else does, I'm going to do it the way that I think it might be done and it might work. Now, I don't know if this is going to work. This could be a big old honking stinking failure. But then again, failing at things and messing things up is something, ironically enough, I do very, very well. And I learn a lot from my mistakes. And that's fun for me. I like starting out with a clean slate and not knowing, and then kind of experimenting as I go. That's just always been my way of gardening. So I'm going to do that with my idea on hydroponics. So what I did was I looked around the house, I found what I had so that I could spend as little money as possible, because I don't like spending a lot of money on my experiments. I like kind of messing around and seeing what I have to work with. And what I had to work with was quite a bit. So without any further rambling on, have a seat right here and I'm going to explain to you what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it, and you can laugh your butt off all you want. Oh, that's a nice vantage point, isn't it? Yeah. Well, first of all, we're going to start out with a container that I'm going to be doing the hydroponics in. This plastic tub is a common tub that you can find at any store. I didn't find it at any store. I found it in my basement. It was holding tools. Now, I was using this tub to hold tools because it wouldn't hold anything else because there was a hole in it. There was a crack, actually, where we dropped it. This is the old-fashioned brittle plastic. The newer types are a little bit more flexible and forgiving. This is an older one that I had. Has a snap-on lid, so it holds, the lid goes on, it snaps shut. They still make these. Well, what I thought was, why don't I just toss out all my tools, put them in a cardboard box, because I have plenty of cardboard boxes, and I can use this. Yeah, so I used a little bit of JB Weld, which is this sealer that you mix together. It's hard as a rock. And I put it on the outside and on the inside to seal the hole. So now this is watertight. This will be where the water goes and the food for the plants. This lid was a solid lid until Ray got a cutting knife and decided to start cutting holes. I'm going to grow 4 different things in here. I could probably make more holes, but I only want to grow 4 things. And this is the exact size of the plastic cups that I want to use. And that's what I'm going to grow them in. Normally in hydroponics you get this, you get a plastic container, you get these certain types of cups that have the slats in them to where the water can go through, because you're growing them in water. And you want to make sure that oxygenated water flows over the roots so that the plant doesn't die of suffocation, because plants can drown. So you want to make sure your water in hydroponics has as much oxygen in it as possible so that the plants can actually breathe. The roots do breathe. So I'm using cups. Yeah, these are Ray's famous solo cups. I just get them at Walmart dirt cheap. And so I thought, well, first of all, common sense, what would I do in order to get this in there? Cut a hole. So I took a cutting knife and I put these upside down, traced around them, and then I made a hole just a little bit less wide than the cup. So I set it in here. This was my initial idea. Well, what happened was it doesn't go all the way to the bottom. Now that makes, now if I fill this thing about 3/4 up, it's only going to go halfway up the cup. So I really can't grow much in there. I rethought it and I widened the hole. So now I can drop the cup all the way in. It doesn't go through this. The little ridge of the cup catches it. but it goes almost all the way to the bottom. Yeah, funny how that works out. The cup just happens to be the right size and depth for this tub. So I did it on 3 of these, and I gotta do it again on this one to finish it off. But I wanted to show you my process on this. And this is the knife that I'm using. Nothing but a carpet knife. And I know it actually sounds really, really dangerous to be using a carpet knife. There are more than likely better ways to do this, yet this is what I had. So I just gently, and I know this looks dangerous, and it could be, but I've been working with knives for decades. So I go nice and slow, and I don't cut myself, and I just cut inside the line, and I make sure I don't push too hard because you don't want it to go, and then you have 4 fingers. No, we don't want to have 4 fingers. We want to have all our fingers left over after this is done. So now we have 4 cups that'll fit in absolutely perfect. Well, when you put the cup in there, how's the water going to get in there? You don't just pour it in there and let it sit in there. Water has to go in from the outside. Step 2. Look at me go. I was wondering how I'm going to do the holes because these cups aren't like the old-fashioned plastic cups. Us older folks remember when plastic cups were so strong, you could use them as your regular drinking cups and when company isn't coming over. Well, these new ones are so thin, they barely even hold together. So putting the holes in these was a little bit of a challenge. I used scissors and then I decided, I got to do the right thing. And that's why I took the drill. And that's what I did. I basically just put them like that. Do all 3 all at once. And then I just went all the way around the perimeter and did holes like this. And that's what I'm going to do with these 3. No, I'm not going to do it on the program because I want to kind of streamline this so that you don't see all the grueling details where Ray is poking holes and pulling little pieces of plastic off of there. That's something that you really don't want to see because it's boring. It is. And then I'm going to drill holes in those, get all the plastic nuggets together and throw them away. Then we'll go on to the next step. We take this, set it on here. We're going to put our containers right like that. Very easy. Now the water inside can flow through the cups. Very good. Now, what are we going to grow our plants in? We can't use soil because this is aquaponics. There's no soil that's going to be in here. I started looking online, and of course I checked around, and most people use what's in this very poorly wrapped package I got off of eBay. Come on. If you're going to ship something, ship it right. But then again, these things aren't breakable. These are clay beads. Yes, they're just round things that are, piece of plastic. Round things that are made out of clay, which means that they're going to absorb some water, hold some water, but then again, they're not soil. And that's what we use, clay beads. You can use marbles if you can get them away from your kids, or anything that is not going to be soil and isn't going to compact. The reason that we use these clay beads is because, first of all, they're kind of large. They look a little bit large, right? What they're going to do is they're going to make air gaps. Oops. Hold on a second. Let me fill this full. You know, I'm going to have these little things just rolling all over the Voodoo Garden after this program. I'm going to be tripping all over them. But I wanted to show you as I go along. Okay, here's what it's going to look like. We're going to fill up each cup with these beads. What these beads will do is they form gaps in between them because they're larger. They don't compact, and that's going to allow moisture to flow through here. We don't want them to compact, like say vermiculite. I use vermiculite with my garden, and that is a soilless thing, but vermiculite will tend to compact just a little bit, and it doesn't allow free water flow. This is going to allow water to flow through like mad, and that's exactly what we want because we want to keep it oxygenated. That way it doesn't get stagnant and kill the plant. So we have the holes to allow the water to go through, these to allow the water to go through the cup. We're going to fill up the cups, then go on to the next step. My inspector. It has to pass inspection, otherwise it don't go. Okay, off he goes. I have these not all the way full with the beads because I have to put the plants in there. I'm not going to just plant seeds and then watch them grow. What I did was I germinated seeds a couple weeks ago in little tiny cups of vermiculite, so they haven't seen soil. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to transplant them in here. So I can't have this full of beads, otherwise I couldn't put the roots in there. The roots have to be underneath these beads. So these are in here. I want to make sure that we have water in here, so I'm going to set this aside. Now remember, like I said, I'm just winging it. So if it looks like I'm kind of stumbling along, why yes I am. Thank you for asking. That's just how I do things. I wanted to do this for the very first time with you around so that we can learn together or learn what not to do together. How much water to put in here? Well, I'm going to put in enough, about maybe 3/4 of the way through. Yeah, that's about a little over half. Now remember, when I put these cups in here, it's going to raise the level. So I want to start out low. I can always add more water later. Ooh, yeah, not so bad. Pour a little bit more in. You can just pour it into the cups. It'll moisten the beads, and it also helps fill up the tank a little bit. Now I don't want the box to be full of water, totally full of water, because then it could just bubble right out the sides. Now look at that. See? You can see the moisture right there. I just happen to have just enough water in my bucket. How cool is that? Now I can always add more when I'm done. But I want to go on to the next step. I don't want to put the plants in here yet. All right, I have to do something else. I'm going to lift this out, set it off to the side. Oops, a little bead got loose. Now, in order to keep the water aerated, I have a bubbler. Yeah, I don't circulate the water. Now some folks, I think most of the aquaponics, they circulate it through another container, it comes back through here. That's not how I'm going to do it. I happen to have this, and this is what I use for my bucket of compost tea in the VoodooGarden. I have a bucket of water, I put a handful of my homemade compost in there, I add this bubbler, I plug it in, it pushes air through here, through a straw, right here, into what's called an air stone. What the air stone does is if you put this hose in there, it's just going to make big bubbles. If you hook it onto this air stone, it'll make smaller bubbles over a larger surface. So it oxygenates the water, and it keeps the compost tea from going stale because of lack of oxygen. That's how I do it. So what I thought was, I happen to have this just laying around. Why don't I place this into here to keep the water oxygenated? That way I don't have to take it out to another container to oxygenate it, flood it right back into here. Like I said, I'm winging it. Don't know if this is going to work, but it seemed to make sense to me. So that's what I'm going to do. In the lid, I have 2 holes, one over there, one on the opposite side. I drilled them just big enough to push this hose through. And on the other side, I have the air stone. Yeah, I got this all planned out. So I lay the air stone down. It doesn't matter if it's right side up or upside down. It's still going to produce the bubbles that I need. And then, dry my hands off because I'm dealing with electrical. I plug it into here. Set it off to the side. Now, once I'm done with all of this, I'm going to tape things and make it look a little bit neater. But for right now, I just want to demonstrate how it's going to look and how it's going to work. With the air pump hooked up, and those are very inexpensive, I just hooked it onto the hose, put it onto the air stone, toss it in there, and we have bubbles. The nice thing about the one that I have, it has 2 outlets to it, so I can place another hose on there, and I can run another one into the other side. This is another air stone used in aquariums, and they're very inexpensive. This one's going to go in on this side. The more air I can get in there, the better. And that way I won't have to keep changing the water out as it gets stagnant and doesn't have oxygen. Because without oxygen, anaerobic bacteria are going to get in there. It's going to smell funky, be funky, it's going to rot the roots, and it's going to be an absolute and utter failure. You have to have a highly oxygenated environment for that. So with these two air stones that I just happen to have, and I'm glad I did save them and not toss them away. I saved everything. I'm going to run those through the lid right here. One of them in one hole, one of them in the other. Snap it shut. Pop the containers in there. And now we're going to start putting the plants into the containers. And through the miracle of editing, we are back in a flash. One of the decisions I had to make was, what am I going to grow in these hydroponic containers that won't go absolutely nuts but can grow inside of here? I mean, I'm really not going to grow a full-size tomato plant in here because that would just be crazy. It would get really huge, flop all over the place, take over the entire world. That's not what I want to do. I want to have something that's sort of believable, that, you know, that's going to stay at a decent size or not be all over the other plants. So I had to think on that, and I wanted a variety so that I could get an idea of what does well in this situation. Here is my choice. I was using lemons about a month or so ago, maybe a month and a half, something like that. Anyway, I had 2 seeds that came out of the lemon. I rinsed them off and I planted them. Here's one of them. This is the one that I yanked out of the soil because I wanted the stronger one to survive, and it's growing in soil and doing really well. This one I was going to toss away, but then I thought, wait a minute, this one will be just fine for the aquaponics. So I put it into vermiculite. This is what vermiculite is. It's nothing but a volcanic rock that's all puffed up with heat, and it has really no nutrition. You can't grow a plant in just vermiculite without feeding it. So this has been growing in a soilless condition, and you can see that it has a little bit of lightness on the leaves because it's starving for nutrition. I had to keep it alive in here just long enough to where I can get started on the hydroponics, but I had to wait until the end of the year because I was taking a vacation. So this plant isn't in the best of condition, but it will work. This is a lemon tree. I know you might be thinking, Ray, why are you growing a lemon tree in a cup? Well, this one isn't going to grow very fast, so I know it's going to last for quite a while in here, at least until I'm done with my experiment. And then if I want to continue growing it, I can put it in soil. But for right now, it's going to do fine in there. That's one plant. The next one isn't looking very good either because it's not growing in soil and it needs nutrition. It needs a lot of nitrogen. Do you know what this is? It's really kind of hard to tell. This is lettuce. Yeah, it's butterhead lettuce. It's the stuff that I'm giving away on the free seed giveaway. I just popped a seed in there. I sprouted it, and it's been growing in there. I actually germinated it in the vermiculite. So it's not very strong, it's not very big, but it does, and it's hard to see, actually it's probably impossible to see here, it does have a root system that has been going all throughout this vermiculite. For such a tiny plant, it has a really nice root system because it's searching for food. And so it's spending all its energy searching for food, and it's becoming a little bit anemic. So I'm hoping when I start feeding it in the hydroponic system, it'll get stronger. That's number 2. My third one would be a spider plant. I just snipped this one off this morning and I tossed it in water to keep it moist. Spider plants grow so fast, and they can actually, this little one is going to stay smaller for a while. So it'll grow perfectly in a cup. Anybody that's growing a spider plant, you know that you can get a really nice plant in a small container. It has little teeny tiny nubs, and those are going to turn into roots. Normally, if you take one of these off, you put it in a cup of water, it'll grow these really strong, fibrous, thick roots. And then you put it into soil and it grows really nice. Well, this one is just getting started with the little nubs. This should do just fine in there. And my last one, do you know what this is? Yeah, Southerners would recognize this. Sweet potato. Remember the sweet potato that I grew outside and I made a pie out of it? Well, I took cuttings and I planted them indoors. They're growing inside just fine. You can see how healthy they are. Well, I just took a cutting this morning, took off the lower leaves. I'm probably going to take off this other leaf here. I'm going to put this into the cup. And sweet potatoes are experts. They are the masters at putting out roots. They will put out roots by like 1 or 2 days later. They'll have a really nice root system coming out. So I know this one is going to put roots into that cup. So there's my last choice. Now this is going to vine, but then again, it's not going to cover the other plants. It'll grow off to the side. So those are my 4 contenders for Ray's Aquaponics Challenge. And now that you know what they are, let's get them into the containers. Let's start out with this one, the spider plant. Now what I want to do is I want to put it into there to where the roots can start growing, but I don't want to bury the whole plant. So I'm thinking about maybe this much to the tips of my fingers. That's a little bit of leaf in there, but that's okay. That's not going to hurt it at all because the growing tip is right up here. So my idea is to, now keep in mind, I've never done this in my life. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. Okay, here we go. I place it down in there. I put these things around it, and I'll probably add some more. But at least it's touching something moist right now. And then that is going to go in here. You don't want it, I don't want it submerged in water right off the bat because the water will get the beads moist and it'll leach, crawl up the clay, and it'll keep this moist. So the nubs will remain moist until they start growing roots, and then they go down there. If I put it all the way down in here, it really has nowhere for the roots to go, and I'm wasting the whole top part of this. So I want to start out closer to the top, and that's what I'm doing with this. All right, so there's one. The next one is the sweet tater. Now that one's a nice tough stem, so what I'm going to do is kind of vibrate it, and that kind of liquefies the soil. I learned that from earthquake videos. You just shake it and you get liquefaction. There. I placed it in there. Now the nice thing about these is I can place it all the way down because it will grow roots all the way up the stem. So that's what I'm going to do. Plant that one a little bit deeper. There we go. Now later on, if I want to, I could put more beads up around here. But for right now, I think that one's going to do just fine. They look like little dog food nuggets. Rascal was sniffing them like they were food, but he has no interest in them, so you don't have to worry. Rascal isn't going to eat them and die. Now, how to get these ones out of here? When I'm transplanting, I like to be as gentle as possible with the roots because the long roots that you see are not generally the ones that are required to take in nutrients. The long roots, if you take a magnifying glass and go real close, you'll see the little root hairs. Those are the things that take in the nutrients. So I don't want to destroy any root hairs, even though this is a very light soil. So what I did is I brought a bucket of water, and I've shown this procedure before for removing plants from soil, but this isn't soil. I'm going to show you right now how I plan on doing this. So I brought a big, fat, stinking heavy bucket of water, and it's going to be as simple as this. I place it in the water. The vermiculite is just going to flow off of here, and that doesn't destroy anything. I just kind of float the plant out of the container without ripping anything. Put water in, put water out. It doesn't hurt this water either because this goes into a watering can and I water the plants with it. So a little bit of vermiculite into my other plants isn't going to hurt. Just keep doing that. Now, by the way, I want to stress that this is not a how-to on hydroponics. That would be the worst I could possibly do because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of winging it, like I said. All right, we have it out of the cup. Now what we're going to do is kind of float it around, nice and gentle, kind of like a jellyfish in here. And we're going to get as much of this vermiculite off as possible. Now, a little vermiculite's going to stick on there because the little root hairs have grabbed onto it. But that's not going to hurt its ability to live in the hydroponics because this is not soil. Now you can see that's quite an extensive root system for such a little itty-bitty baby. Now, let's take the water. I need an assistant. Take this in and lay it down. I'm not going to try and spread the roots because they're very delicate and it's really hard for me to hold on to this plant the way that it is. So if I accidentally yank on it, I could snap the whole root cluster right off of there. What I'm doing is I'm just going to slowly add the beads on one side like this, lay it down, and gather up the beads and gently take my time. Now I'm not in a rush. You know, this could, of course, be done faster. Ooh, little rascal hairs. Okay. There's going to be rascal hairs in my hydroponic. Maybe that will be the magic ingredient that helps grow this plant. Okay, I'm going to lean it back over, get a few more beads, because I want to make sure they're totally covered, but I don't want to hit this plant with these. There we go. Now look at that. All in, all done. Yep, nobody had to die. I'm going to set this to the side, and we're going to do the last one. That would be this. I'm going to go right off camera, get the vermiculite out, and then I'll show you the roots. You've already seen how I do it. Uh-oh, it's in the bucket somewhere. Oh, there it is. Now this one has a root system that's a little bit more sturdy than the lettuce. That is a nice root system for a little baby tree. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing here. I'm going to pour out some of these beads. I want to see how high I want to do this. I don't want to do it all the way to the top, and I can't leave any of the roots exposed. So I'm going to have to plant this one a little bit deeper, but that's okay. I think it's going to grow just fine with its roots way the heck down there. Now, I gently just pour these in around it. Oops, I'm going to need a few more. And these are very inexpensive. So, and also, when you're done using them for one thing, you can reuse them. Yes. If you have them in a hydroponic system and you're done using it, all you have to do is rinse them off really good. Maybe put them into some boiling water to sterilize them so that if there's any kind of fungus or you killed your plants, there's not something in there that's going to harm the other ones. All right, there we go. Oh, I like this. I'm going to enjoy the heck out of this. There. We are all ready to go. All right, the first one, that would be the tree. Goes in here. The lettuce, right off to the side. Spider baby. You can see the water is getting fuller as I pop these things in there, so I'm glad I didn't fill it up all the way. And I want to make sure that I can see the water in there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my water can. Where's my water can? Ah, there it is. I'm going to moisten these because I did put in some dry ones in here. I want to make sure I can just kind of see the moisture. There we go. Now I'm going to get you a nice close-up. Hold on, I won't drop you. Down at ground level you can see the water bubbles going around. That's going to keep it oxygenated. The water isn't that full. I could put a little bit more water in there if I want, but I probably won't need to, because right here you'll notice that you can actually see the water towards the top of the beads. See that? And over here you can actually even see the bubbles coming in through the side of the pot. Yeah. And that's how I start my aquaponics system. Now, one of the last questions that people are going to be asking is, Ray, how do you feed these things? Well, that's the final equation that I had to come up with. How do you feed this? A lot of people use artificial fertilizers because you can't use organic fertilizers. Well, a lot of people don't, because you need to feed the plants directly, because there's no soil. That normally soil will take the organic fertilizers and turn it into something that the plants can use. Well, I don't have that option since I don't have soil, so what am I going to do? Well, here's my solution. Remove one of the plants, open up my little baggie, and grab. Now, I make my compost tea 1 heaping handful for 5 gallons of water. This is about maybe 3 gallons. So what I'm going to do, I don't want to feed them a whole heck of a lot. I want to do a gentle feeding. This is the compost that I made outside, and I sold it on my website, and I will be selling it again in the spring. Compost Tea feeds all my plants. Now this isn't going to make soil. What it's going to do is it's going to rehydrate inside there. It's less than a heaping handful. Let's moisten it. It's going to spread throughout there with the bubbles, and it's going to make a compost tea. And that compost tea, my thoughts are, it's going to feed the plants. Now that's my theory. I don't know, and that's why I call this my experiment. I tossed in the compost tea, toss this thing back in there, and the hydroponics is ready to go. The last thing I want to do is put this by a relatively bright light somewhere in the Voodoo Garden, and we'll see how it grows. I'm going to keep up with this, and I'm going to let you know whether it works or doesn't work. It's not going to be one of those things where only if it works you're going to see the results. No, what I do is I try things and I let you know how mine go. That way you don't have to follow along and realize, hey, it never worked. No, if it doesn't work, you're going to see it. If it works, you're definitely going to see it. So this is the start of Ray's little hydroponic Frankenstein experiment. I know it's not exactly what people thought it might be, or they think it should be, but this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Maybe it'll work. Well, there we go. Ray's experiment into hydroponics. I have no idea how it's going to work, but I was curious about this, and when I'm curious about something, it generally gnaws at my brain until I try it. And now that I'm trying it, I'll find out whether my ideas, what was in my head, will work or it won't work. So there's my application. I hope it does work, by the way. And if you have any questions, concerns, anything at all you want to chat about, post it in the comments section below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I'm running the 2019 free seed giveaway. Yeah, I told you on the last program here and on the Practice 55712 channel. Do not forget, I put a link below this program if you missed it, and go down to below this program where it says Show More. It'll have a link to my online seed store, the 55-cent Ray Garden Seed Store, but also, and more importantly, it will have a link to the program that gives you exact instructions on where to send your envelope, how to address your envelope. That's very important. Who can send in an envelope, everything you wanted to know about the free seed giveaway. That way, you can get some free garden seeds from me to you to your garden. And that's all there is to it. It's very, very simple, and it's very, very free. Not a single dime will you pay for this. And I'm very happy to give you this gift. Once a year I do this, and I hope you'll take advantage of it. Scroll down, click the link, check it out, and we can get growing this spring. Okay, I got to get going. I have a heck of a mess to do, because that's what happens when Ray experiments. Ray has a lot of mess. You don't see the mess because it's all at your feet. This is a stage. This is all set up. The real mess, it's over there, and it's got to be put away. Thank you for joining me, and don't forget, in the Voodoo Garden, all things are possible.